Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to be taking a look at a very simple yet dynamic tool in Photoshop, and that is the curves adjustment layer. It's very simple, but I find it very useful in a number of ways, and in this video we're going to be sharing with you 5 of those ways. So to start with, let's go into Photoshop. So one of the first thing you notice once you drop in your curves adjustment layer, to bring it in, by the way, you need to come to the adjustment panel and click on the curves adjustment layer, and that brings this layer up for you, this diagram. So this is the property, this is the layer, the curves 1, and this is the property. So already you can see the histogram in this image, and what you can see right now is that it is very dull. Okay, so if I click in the middle and bring it up, you can see that I can use this tool to bring up the brightness in this image, and already just by pulling this graph up, then you can see that the image is already bright. Okay, and you can also use it to bring down the brightness if you want, but more than that, you can use it to increase the contrast in your image. And how do you do that? Contrast generally will refer to making your highlights, sort of brighter, and your shadows a little bit darker, so that it's, it feels sharper, it feels, it pops a little bit more. Now, how do you use the curves adjustment layer to do this? By the way, when you use the curves adjustment layer this way, your workflow is described as non-destructive, because you can always delete this layer, and so yeah, I just deleted it and I have my original image back. And you can just click on this on the tool again and then bring it back, as against working on the image on that particular, on the background layer directly, in which whatever you've done on it you've lost forever. So this is a non-destructive approach, and it's very useful. So talking about the dynamic, talking about the contrast, right? If you take this bright area up a little bit, okay, you can see the bright areas in the image, becoming brighter generally. But in this dark area, if you pull it down ever so slightly, then you're beginning to increase the contrast in the image, such that the bright area are actually brighter, and then the dark areas, are sort of darker, and then your image begins to pop. So if I turn this layer off, you can see how dull it was originally, and how sharper, how more contrast we have in the image right now. So that is the first thing. You can use it to increase the brightness or decrease the brightness, and you can use it to control the contrast in your image. Number 2, dynamic range. So in this image that we're looking at, we can see that we almost can't see anything in the shadow area, and that's because it's a little bit crushed. And if you look at the graph, that's the histogram, you can see it on this side that it's like we don't even have any information on the highlight part of the image, and everything is just moved into the shadow area. So what I'm going to do now is grab the input point here and drag it in, and as I'm going in, I'm going to stop just shortly before the graphs are going up. That's the histogram. Okay, I think 100 is okay in our case now. All right, so immediately you can see that we have more information in this shadow area, and hence we've sort of boost the range we have there. Again, if I bring this point, the output point, from the shadow area and start bringing it up, you can see that I'm beginning to increase, although this looks a little bit flat. Okay, this looks a little bit flat, but we can now see some information in the dark areas. So if I add yet another layer or curves adjustment, you can see how much we have pushed the shadows, you know, into the bright side, and then I can add sort of like a contrast in here, and then, you know, have the image sit well the way I want it to be. So it's looking like it was originally, only now I have more information in the shadow area. So that is how you can use that to sort of increase the dynamic. Although once you take the picture, you've already sealed the fate, except you're shooting in RAW and you're processing in your RAW processor. But working with JPEG, this is the best you can do. So if I turn what we've done so far on and off, you can see how far we've gone, and this is all using the curves adjustment layer alone. Number 3, color correction. So color correction is basically reconciling the image you took to what is supposed to be the real color in your photograph. And how do you do that? You look for a tone that is supposed to be without color, that is a neutral tone, which could be black or white or anything in between, any shade of gray. Once you're able to find such an area of your image and you're able to restore that, then all other colors will be properly represented. So for example, in this image we have in front of us, we can see the glove, we can see the wall, and we can see all other objects. I know for a fact that this carton here is white and then this wall is actually white. So what I'm going to do is bring my curves adjustment layer, and this time around I'm going to use the speaker tool, and I'm going to use the middle one, which refers to the midpoint of the image. So this sets the black point, this sets the white point, and this is the midpoint. And if you place your cursor on it, you can see it says sample an image to set the gray point, which I was calling the midpoint. So I'm going to click on this, and immediately you can see what it's doing. It's trying to make the point I clicked on gray value. Okay, but I think this is too much. It's looking more of blue now. So what I'm going to do is come to the layer and drop the opacity a little bit, so it gives me a blend between what was there originally and what we have now. Okay, so this looks more true to life. This was before, this is after, and then you can see immediately the transformation that has happened, you know, at 66, let me just drop it to 65% opacity of what this has calculated. To fix any problem with color in terms of color correction, in terms of color temperature, it's better you do that shooting raw and correcting in a raw processor like Capture One or Lightroom. But if you don't have that opportunity and you have to do it in Photoshop, this is a way you can approach it. Now we go to the fourth one, which is color grading. Now what is color grading? It's basically using colors to stylize your image any way you want. This is different from color correction. Color correction is that you want the real colors in your image to come out the way it was shot, okay, the way it was meant to be. All right, whereas color grading is using colors to stylize your image in a pleasing way that you like. So in this photograph, I'm going to show you another part of the curves adjustment layer. We've looked at how to use the in and out, and the input point and the output point, increasing the level of the white and the blacks and increasing your dynamic range. Use this line to control your contrast. So now we're going to look at this button here for our color grading. Now, of course, there is no one way of doing things, especially in Photoshop. There's so many ways you can approach color grading, but this is a way to go if you want to use the curves adjustment layer. So I'm going to click on this while holding shift. So I'm going to hold while holding Alt. So I'm going to click on Alt and click on auto, and once I do that, it brings up this auto color correction option, and I'm going to come into monochrome, and already you can begin to see based on the last color I used. So I want this to have the entire image. So the dress they're wearing, okay, the dress they're wearing is they're putting on is pink in nature. So I want the entire image to have that pink feeling. Okay, so I'm going to click on the shadow, okay, and try to look for that particular color. Okay, that was let me cancel that and look for that pink color. So I'm going to come to red and something off along this area. Okay, so don't worry, right now it's too much, but we're going to fix that in a moment. Now I'm going to come to the black instead of into brightness and darkness. Instead of being in hue saturation, I'm going to come in here and just reduce the brightness of that particular color. So I'll bring it down, keep coming, okay, and then the entire shadow area is filled in with that particular color. All right, now I can clip it at the highest point, 9.99. This is actually looking too much because the image is sort of bright and airy. So let's do 0.5. Let me see what 4 looks like. Too much contrast. Let's do 2. I think I'm comfortable with 2. All right, so I'm going to click on OK. I can just ignore this for now, and here is a brand new image, full of the color pink. So I've gently introduced the color pink into the entire image, and it's extremely subtle, but I've graded it off the way it was naturally. And you can do this with any image, you can do this with any color you so wish. So if you're going to use if you're going to use the curves adjustment layer for a color correction, this is a way to go. Finally, dodge and burn. So what is dodge and burn? Basically, sort of feels like you're increasing the contrast of your image, but in a more refined and targeted approach. Okay, so I'm going to use this image to demonstrate this, and here we're going to be combining 2 curves adjustment layer to achieve the dodge and burn. Again, in Photoshop, there's so many ways to achieve the same thing, but this is a way to do it using the curves adjustment layer. So I'm going to use 2, but I'm going to start with 1. So I'm going to pull this image up, and I'm looking at the areas in the image are supposed to be very bright, although the lighting for the image is a little bit even. Okay, so I think I'm more comfortable around here. I'm going to stop here. So we're going to call this image, let's name it Dodge. Okay, and We're going to create a second one and call it, let me hide this one so that I have access to the original. And let me pull this down and down. Again, at this point, I'm looking at the black point in the image. I'm looking at the hair, and that seems a bit darker, and the eyeball. Okay, so I think I'm comfortable here. Why I'm not losing details yet. And I'm going to bring this guy back up, and I'm going to change the mask. I'm going to invert them so that we have the mask as black. All right, so at this point there's no difference. So let me rename this one. Let's call this bun. Okay, let's call this bun, and I'm going to group them, and I'm going to call it dodge and bun. Dodge and bun. Dodge and bun. They'll just leave it that way. Okay, so what to do? I'm going to select my brush tool. So again, this may feel a little bit more complex than the examples I've shown earlier, but of course it's a way. So I'm going to the flow is usually very low, so let's use 3, and very subtly we're going to do a very simple dodge and bun on this image. All right, so I'm going to go to the bun image, to the bun layer. Remember, we're using the curves adjustment layer to do this, and I'm going to ever so slightly, our flow is still on 3, ever so slightly paint in the air to make it a little darker, and my brush is set to white, so that as I'm doing this, it's just gently darkening the hair, to bring out a better shape. So the thing is, as you do this, you may not see the result immediately, but by the time you begin to check, you can see that the hair is getting sort of darker. But that's not the only area you can use it. Although while taking this photograph, it was meant to be very bright and hairy, but we can introduce some bun into the image. Let's darken the sides of the nose a little bit. Okay, and we're beginning to introduce some shape into the nose, sort of elongating the nose. That way we might increase the jaw and enhance the jaw line. Okay, and then we can go for this as well. I think I'm going to stop right there so that I don't distort the image too much. Let me add some. So I'm on the dodge layer now. I can just increase the lighting on her forehead a little bit and stroke down her nose just so slightly. Okay, I can do this for this part of the face, and this side also, and maybe this side. I can increase the glossiness on her lips, and that's it. Now while you're watching, you may not notice a lot of difference, but if I turn it off, you can immediately see that I've altered the shape of the face. I mean, if it was lit for beauty, this will make a whole lot more sense. I think I want to reduce the intensity of the dodge layer a little bit. I think I'm going to drop it to 50% and drop the entire thing to 70%. All right, now this is much better. Okay, this is much better, and that is the dodge and burn. So those are the 5 ways I use the curves adjustment layer. That is not exhaustive, but I mean, just to share 5 with you. If you've stayed this long in this video, I might as well show you one more tip, and that is taking a better advantage of the adjustment layer. And this actually applies to any adjustment layer in Photoshop, and that is to combine it with the mask. So the mask is a process where you reveal or hide a part of an image based on the mask you're using. So if it's white, then you are showing what is there. If it's black, then you're hiding what is there. Do you get it? White reveals, black conceals. All right. Now, so what I want to do in this image is to darken the background or brighten the background. Okay, so I'm going to use the quick selection tool to select the area I want to work on. So I'm going to say select subject. Okay, and then Photoshop will do its thing and try as much as possible to calculate where the subject is. I can see that it still takes some part of the background, but since this is not the focus of this walkthrough, I'm not going to bother so much about it. So with this selection on, I'm going to click on the curves adjustment layer, and immediately if you look at the mask, you can see that a part of it is white and the other part is black. And if I hold on to the line here and bending the curve, you can see that it's changing in contrast and in brightness. But it's not the subject in the image that I want to affect. I want to affect the background. So I'm going to click on the mask and click on invert. So now it's going to affect the opposite. So if I click on the adjustment layer now and I take it up, then you can see the background becoming brighter. So if I keep pushing, I can actually make it white, or I can go the opposite direction and make it even darker. So combining the curve adjustment layer with the mask, it helps you achieve even more than you could without using the mask. I hope you have learned a thing or two from this discussion on the curves adjustment layer, and I hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.